has been really helped by Deepak and Dr. Ashish. So they have already taken up most of the ways and means by which my talk will be held. Because it is net-free NICU. I think everybody would dream that. I would dream to have a net-free NICU. So what do we do when we dream? Some people did dream. So you have to see that when you dream, you also form some measures to achieve that dream. So few people, they dreamt that they should have at least not net free, but at least the minimum net NICU. And so what they did something, and let's see whether they got a success or not. So they had a quality improvement initiatives. So there were 192 NICU beds which they included, and they targeted that they should be reducing the net rate from 8%, which was the existing rate at that time, to 4% from 2011 to 2013. And this reduction should not be just one-time reduction, but it should be a sustained reduction, that they saw that for another 6 months, whether they could do it or not. And the key drivers which they took, they were very, very simple key drivers, which we all can do. One was early human milk feeding, and in that human milk feeding also they were trying to have mother's own milk use, and if that was not available, then only they were going for a human milk donor. And they established a very strict VLBW infant feeding guidelines and adhered to it. Tried to give colostrum within 72 hours of age. So these were the early human milk feeding regime. Then they had a feeding transfusion guideline where they had a conservative approach to the transfusion feeding guidelines. That means they were actually withholding the feed during the transfusion. And then they had a strict protocol when to restrict the feed. This doesn't mean that they want to restrict feed more, but there are few areas where you would just unnecessarily restrict the feed and cause problem. So there were certain guidelines which were laid down, which were followed strictly. And especially during transfusion and indomethacin, there was a protocol for how long to stop the feeding. And then the fourth measure was ranitidine use policies. So this was like already they were saying that we shouldn't be using ranitidine in our NICUs. However, when they put the quality initiative, they tried to make sure it's not being done. So what happened by these measures? This looks a bit complicated, but I would like to try to simplify it. So what they have done is they have seen over a period of time. So this is the time frame, and then they have tried to see the net rate. So this is the project starting time, and then they have introduced few measures which we already talked about. That they initially started with conservative transfusion guidelines here, and the human milk feeding was encouraged here. And later on, they introduced indomethacin guideline of the feeding and ranitidine thing. So what happened? The baseline rate, as you can say, is 8% here of NICU. And then by introducing these four measures, what happened? They were expecting from 8% it should be 4%. So this dotted line is the expectation. But what happened? It went much below the expectation. So they were expecting about 4%, but it went down to 3.1%. So they achieved this with just 4 strategies. Nothing major was done. During that time, they have also seen how many babies got discharged when they could receive mom's milk only, and they saw that the baseline rate was so low, and they could, because of the quality initiative, they could go up to 50%. So by just 50% increase in the feeding rate, they could reduce the net. So I'm just wondering, if we could make it 100%, then maybe we would be able to banish the net from our NICU. My dream. Then they looked into net-related deaths, and they found that with these 4 interventions which were done, From 2.9% death rate because of the neck, it came down to 0.9%. So that was also quite significant. This means that not only the overall neck rate is reduced, the severe kind of neck which may lead to the mortality is also reduced. So this was one thing which really, actually the one talk before me was making me depressed, and I thought everybody sitting in the audience would also be depressed that we have nothing. So I thought this would make people better, that we can do better things. And then same initiative was taken up by other people. This initiative is little before the one I presented now, but I would like to share this because there were 6 centers which were taken, and then a systematic review was done on what is the effect of standardized feeding regimes on neck. So this looks like a bit busy slide, but this just as these 6 centers, what they looked into, I just tried to enumerate, that they were looking at feeding strategies and other strategies which were kept very, very strict, like time to start feed, what was the method of feeding, what is the type of feeding, feed volume to start, how to increase the feed, total maximum volume, minimal enteral feed, and the definition of feed intolerance, because that is very important. We just say, oh, 1 ml of aspirate came and it is a feed intolerance. So that is what it was very strictly adhered to. And then plans. Plan for action for sepsis, plan for action of PDA and indomethacin, plan for action for large gastric aspirates, bile aspirates and umbilical catheters. So these were taken, and then what they saw, that the incidence rate which was higher in all the centers had reduced, and when they combined these studies data, they found it to be reduced. However, one of the studies, that is Patole study, was little having a different kind of a result from the other study, so they took out that study, and even then they found the incidence of neck was reduced. So they found reduction in the incidence of neck by 87% just by introduction of standardizing feeding regime. So we could reduce the neck to some extent. Now if we want to reduce further, we have to look for more strategies. So what would be the more strategies which can help our babies? These other interventions are antenatal steroids, delayed cord clamping, improving gut colonization, blood transfusion strategies, probiotics and electrocuting. I hope these studies which were done were also giving antenatal steroids, but because they didn't mention it, so I just want to mention that these do help, so we should be promoting this for our obstetricians. So we all know about our offering that when we give antenatal steroids to our moms, we have reduction in the neck. And now we have started using another modality, that is delayed cord clamping. So delayed cord clamping also in a Cochrane review has shown that it reduces neck by 40%, which is a good reduction. So this is a very simple modality. Then improving gut colonization. So when our baby is born and we want to have not the bad bacteria, bugs which Dr. Ashish showed, and we want the baby's colonization with the good bugs, then what should we do? So we have some measures, like we should be going more for our vaginal deliveries because cesareans have been showing effect on the colonization. EPM we have already talked about, don't keep the babies NPO for a very long time. And also, the thing which is already emphasized well, antibiotic use, not only for the newborns, but to our moms, because they also affect the baby's colonization. So we have to restrict antibiotics to our moms and even to the animals now. So, and no H2 blockers in the NICU. Then, as in the first quality improvement study, they have emphasized on withholding feed and getting a good effect. I would like to share with you few of the studies and the reviews which says it doesn't really help. So, because you have to see to it whether really this is a good modality or not. Feeding blood transfusion, our retrospective chart review over a 3-year period showed that there was no effect of withholding feed while you are giving blood transfusion. Rather, when you are holding the feed, you are putting some IV line for the extra fluid, additional fluids, and you are disrupting the nutrition. So this study did not show it. And then there was another study which said that blood transfusion associated neck is 10x, that is transfusion associated neck, which does not have any relevance with the feeding withhold. So that baby who is very sick, who is very small, whose gestation is less, whose weight is less, has high other risk factors of mortality, would get this problem even if you withhold the feeding. So that has to be seen. Then comes the most hot topic which is being discussed day in and day out, and that is probiotics. Now what is happening? We are having a baby, and we have surrounded our baby with so many issues. We are going in more for cesareans. We have antibiotic therapy not only for the mom but also for the baby. And then we are subjecting our babies to non-human milk feeding, and there is a lot of hospital environment. All this together is causing abnormal colonization of the baby's gut, and that is predisposing our baby to the neck. So some of the ways we tried. The other way what we can help is probiotics. So what is evidence? So we have a meta-analysis. We have actually 4 or 5 meta-analysis. One after the other done. I would not take all of them, but few of them. So this Cochrane, which took 24 eligible trials, and it says probiotics reduce severe neck, especially more stage 2 and above, by 50%. And there was no systemic infection caused by the probiotics. And then there was another review, which is a systematic review and meta-analysis. This review has seen it in more closely and has shown that there is a real decrease in the neck by the use of probiotic in the overall population. What about, we will say, okay, my unit doesn't have that much of neck, why should I use a probiotic? So then they looked into that. So depending on what is the incidence of neck in your unit, there was a significant decrease in neck if you have a more incidence, but there was still a difference even if you have a less than 5% incidence of neck in your unit. So it is working in all the units. And then they looked into each bacilli, which bacilli would be helping if you are giving it individually. That answer did not come well, that exactly which bacteria, which bacilli should be given. So what does the current evidence say? It suggests that probiotics are effective in decreasing the neck in the preterm infants. However, we have concerns over safety and optimal dosing, as we don't have a real study which bacteria will be used. And then there is a role of prebiotic or postbiotic. We want to be more sure on that before we get more studies. Then are the few more things which are there in our hand, that is lactoferrin, arginine, glutamine and immunoglobulins. What about lactoferrin? Lactoferrin looks very exciting, and we all are well aware of the lactoferrin because we know that our mom's milk already has lactoferrin. So when we are giving a baby a mom's milk, the baby already gets a lactoferrin. And what does lactoferrin do? It has an immunologic action, post-defense action, biochemical action and a growth action. So all these actions help the baby to generate an immune system and also prevents the neck. So do we have a data to say that yes, lactoferrin is helping? Yeah, we do have. There is a systematic review where in the forest plot you can see if we give lactoferrin alone, it did reduce the neck to a significant level. And if we combine lactoferrin with the probiotics, it reduced much more neck in these babies. However, we still need more data to say which is the optimal dose, which one lactoferrin should be given, bovine or human recombinant. Is it a food additive or is it a medicine? So what it should be called. And we are waiting for the results of these studies which are from Australia, Neolacto, UK, and we'll get 4,000 babies result after we get these studies are out, and then we will be able to say with confidence, okay, go ahead and give lactoferrin. Then is the arginine, glutamine and immunoglobulins. Say, if you see the studies done, they are not showing very good results. So at the moment, none of them are recommended. and few animal studies are being done for human milk oligosaccharides. So the key points are, the best thing is to avoid prematurity, which I am sure we will not be able to do, antenatal steroids, delayed cord clamping, antibiotic stewardship, and standardized feeding regimes. I would just recommend this very strongly. Each unit should have a standardized feeding regimes. That means we should start the minimal enteral feed as early as possible. We should be giving human milk and as much as mom's milk. And already Dr. Deepak has shown how to do it. So we have to have a strong unit policies to do that. And we should not just withhold feed just with some few gastric aspirates, continue giving feed, and can increase the volume confidently. No H2 blockers. Please don't use any H2 blocker in your units. Probiotics, if your unit NEC rate is high. Strict blood transfusion protocols. Don't give blood transfusion if not required. So that is the thing. Avoid giving blood transfusions. Colostrum, till you get a lactoferrin, that may be tried. Arginine, glutamine and immunoglobulin have no role. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Monica. Any question for the Dr. Monica question? Yeah, please go ahead.